so we're about to talk about The Boys series finale. If you have not seen the final episode of The Boys, click off now because it's mostly going to be spoilers from here on in. I just did a watch party. I went live and I reacted to the episode as I was watching it. So we're going to talk about it here. Spoilers if you have not seen it. Click off now. This is your only warning. So, for the first 20 minutes of the show, it wastes time. You have a little funeral for Frenchie, and of course, you have to ruin it with humor, stupid humor. I guess that would have been on par with the character and these characters that we know is to kind of make stupid humor, but at the same time, you can't have an emotional moment without humor in this show, so they kind of ruined that. We find out that Kimiko somehow has Soldier Boy's powers. Apparently, the experimentations worked on her. And she blasts Sister Sage and makes her dumb. So now she's just an average black woman. And she goes off and fucks off and goes to Orlando, I think Harry Potter World. So good for Sister Sage. Bye, Sister Sage. Bye. You're just an average black woman now. You're not smart or anything. So she fucks off. And then Homelander's about to give his inaugural speech on Easter to pronounce that he is supposedly God, the sacrilegious shit that I hate about this show. But I get what they're doing. I get what they're trying to say about the whole Homelander's Trump allegory. Father's helping him out the whole time. The boys devise a plan to go into the tunnels, the JFK sex tunnels, to get inside the White House to kill Homelander while the entire world watches on camera. Starlight just shows up and blasts the Deep and sends his ass flying out. Over to a beach somewhere just to get them out of the scene where Starlight has a final battle with the Deep. Of course, the Deep is, he gets shit on by Homelander one final time, which was a satisfying scene to watch. And then the Deep fights Starlight, and it's a story of the Deep's insecurities. He's a weak man. So Starlight throws his ass into the ocean for the sharks to get him. And I think an octopus sends its tentacles right up his ass and out his mouth and kills him. So R.I.P. the Deep. Bye the Deep. It would have sucked actually if he lived, but yeah, he deserved to die. And then somehow Starlight makes it back to the White House in time. I don't know how she got back there so fast, but Ashley, the redhead chick with Bashley at the back of her head, decides to have a face turn. She decides to have a character arc where she stands up for herself and she turns on Vought and Homelander and helps the boys by helping them escape the sex tunnels. And apparently they had introduced several things in this episode that are just plot conveniences. For example, Huey having a thing for, I guess, a smoke detector, which, okay, fair enough. I think looking back on it now, we established that he was into electronics and stuff, but it felt kind of random that it came out of nowhere. And especially the idea of dog whistles for Soups, where Soups can hear a certain frequency and it's like a dog whistle. It's like, why have we never addressed this before? There was things like that that just kind of felt like there was no setup and to the payoff there. But Ashley escapes. And by the end of the episode, she becomes president, or she's the first female president, but by the end, she gets impeached for her troubles. So that was a funny little thing that they did, but she has an arc for sure. O-Father comes in, and apparently O-Father's bulletproof because Huey shoots him several times. But then the ball gag that O-Father got from Ashley is used against him whenever Mother's Milk puts the ball gag around his mouth, and his head blows up like Black Bolt in Multiverse of Madness. And so, bye, O-Father. Bye. What's it called? Then they go on to the scene where we have Homelander in the Oval Office. There was a scene earlier on where Ryan rejects Homelander and finally, stands up for himself and becomes his own man a little bit. Ryan comes in to help Butcher and Kimiko fight Homelander. You get a 3-on-1 battle with Homelander in the Oval Office. They're trying to capture Homelander. They're trying to keep him held down so that Kimiko can blast him with her chest beams of the Soldier Boy powers that would take away the Compound B. What's it called? she stops midway through the battle and has a vision of Frenchie because she can't do it. She can't do it. She doesn't have the rage to do it. So she needs the Force Ghost of Frenchie to help her out. And then eventually Ryan and Butcher hold down Homelander as she blasts them all with her chest beams. And she ends up taking away the Compound V from all three characters. This whole time, the whole world is watching on a camera that's been tilted over on the ground. Then Homelander cowers and he tries to fight Butcher, but Butcher's stronger and Butcher's more angry. So he beats the crap out of Homelander. And then he has Homelander begging on his knees, pleading for mercy, trying to rationalize with it. But Butcher's not having it. Butcher just stabs him in the head with a crowbar and crows his brains out all over the table. And so, yeah, that's the end of Homelander. That's the end of Homelander. I feel like Homelander's death was greatly underwhelming because, for me, taking away his powers makes it feel like you're diminishing the accomplishment. Because if you have him with his powers, if he still has his powers whenever Butcher and the boys kill him, then it feels like you've actually accomplished something. You've sent a message to the world that you can kill Superman. You're able to do it. You are capable of killing this monster with his powers. But instead they chose to go with the message of, we're going to take his powers away so that he's a cowering, weak person. And so now all you're doing is just killing a coward. So I have to ask the question, I have to beg the question, why does it take 5 seasons of a television show like this to kill a sniveling coward? It shouldn't. It really shouldn't. But the point of the show was not to be logical or consistent or emotionally invested. The show was about hammering you over the head with the message for 3 seasons straight. And then finally crawling to the finish line. Well, rather, rushing to the finish line. The rest of the season, they were crawling to the finish line. This last episode was very rushed. They rushed straight to the finish line with this episode. Because they knew they had no more time. There was no more time left to be spent. And so, as a result, people start turning against Homelander. And Vought still exists. Stan Edgar's just let out of his cage for no reason at all. And he resumes, being the interim CEO of Vought. But Vought still exists. Superheroes still exist. And Butcher knows this even after he kills Homelander. So he goes out of his way to take the virus. And he takes the Compound V virus. He goes up to Vought at the Tower of the Seven or whatever. And Huey follows him so that we can have a showdown between Huey and Butcher. And this is where the climax of the episode happens. This is where the important meat happens. I personally did get a little bit, I felt the emotional weight of that scene. I definitely felt it. But I also think there's a double-edged sword. Butcher's right. Vought still exists. Superheroes still exist. You're going to get another Homelander. You spent 5 seasons of a television show telling the story of a hate-revenge fantasy between Butcher and Homelander that you didn't even factor in that Vought would still exist after the fact. And then you have a moment where it's like, well, Butcher's in the wrong, and Huey decides to kill Butcher in a moment of vulnerability where Butcher sees his little brother Lenny and Huey ends up shooting him in the gut, and Butcher dies. And so, in that moment, Huey just allowed Vought to exist. Huey allowed another Homelander to potentially exist. Huey would let history repeat itself. So Butcher was right. Nothing short of superhero genocide was going to stop the problem. Because Vought would still exist, even though Homelander doesn't. But that's not the point of the show. Fuck, it isn't. That's the whole point of the show, was that all the superheroes were bad. So you're expecting me to believe that this new generation of superheroes would not be bad after Homelander? There's going to be people that still believe in Homelander. There's people, according to the show's own narrative, their own lore, there will be conspiracy theorists that believe Homelander's not dead. There will be people that are still rooting for Homelander and rooting for Vought that will refuse to believe that Homelander is dead. These are plot threads that this show will not unravel because it doesn't have time. Because it didn't focus on that. Because it wasn't about that. It was about sending the message that MAGA was bad. Conservatives were bad. White people were bad. Superheroes were an allegory for white supremacy. That's what this was always about. That's why I fucking hate this show. Because this show had no narrative purpose. It had no story to tell. It had no lessons to tell. All it was basically far left porn, far left propaganda, and gore porn for basically what I would consider the left's incels. The incels on the left. That's what the show was made for. And so the message of the show is, essentially you could kill Homelander and you're still not going to be happy. You're still not going to solve the problem, essentially. That's the lesson that I learned from it. Even with all the smoke and mirrors of emotional scenes, I wasn't buying it. Unfortunately, the thing that hit me the hardest, Terror. Terror dying, the little dog, the British Bulldog Terror dying, that hit me in the feels. I was like, man, the doggo's dead. Fuck. But here's what I will say. Comparing it to Garth Ennis's other adaptations, like, for example, Preacher. This show definitely ended better than Preacher. I hated the ending of Preacher. But that doesn't mean that this was a super satisfying ending. I feel like it was a wasted time. Like, they wasted a lot of time rushing to the ending and crawling their way throughout the rest of the season. Soldier Boy is still in the cryo chamber. Nobody even talked about Soldier Boy in this episode. He's still in the cryo chamber. Ryan goes off with Mother's Milk, and Mother's Milk reunites with his family. All right, I like that. So Ryan's with Mother's Milk now. Kimiko eats a bunch of French food somewhere, and now I guess she's lonely because Frenchie's dead. Butcher is buried. Everybody has a funeral for him. And then, as I expected, Huey and Starlight have a happy ending. They get together at the end. And just as... I guess we never found out what happened to Victoria Newman's daughter with Stan Edgar. We never got that figured out. Or, matter of fact, with any of the other superheroes, we didn't get any resolutions. Especially Queen Maeve. Had no resolutions for her. All the people who watch Gen V, yeah, that was a waste of fucking time. V1 making you immortal, waste of time. The virus, waste of time. All of that shit means nothing. If you watch Gen V, I feel sorry for you because the show means fucking nothing. And I'm glad I didn't watch it. It was a waste of fucking time. But at the very end, we get to see that I think Victoria Newman's side man becomes her vice president or something, becomes the president of the United States, and he's about to reopen the Superhuman Bureau of Affairs, the Bureau of Superhuman Affairs, and he wants Huey to come in and help with that. But Huey decides to open up his own electronics store instead, and we see that him and Starlight are about to have a baby. Starlight's pregnant, and there's a happy ending between Starlight and Huey, where if you want to go into the intersectional messaging, she flies away with his baby, and he just looks up at the sky with a smile. He names the baby after his old girlfriend Robin, who died in the first episode. So I thought that was a happy ending. I thought it was a better ending than Preacher. Certainly a better ending than Game of Thrones, but that doesn't mean that the season was better than Game of Thrones' ending, that's for sure. The season still sucked. The show still sucks. You have a good ending, fine, but it was a rush to the finish with a bunch of bullshit in between, right? And so I like the message of having Starlight and Huey having a baby at the end. I like that. Not so much of a nihilistic message. I like that ending. Butcher was always going to die. Homelander was always going to die. I always do that stuff. I was kind of hoping Kimiko would die too, but, can't have everything because she's inconsistent as fuck. She goes from talking to not talking to talking again with no real explanation. They just kind of rush through it. But yeah, that's The Boys. And my verdict on the show, I fucking hate it. I hate this show. Particularly for seasons 2 through 5, the finale, if you were to do season 1, half of season 2, and then the finale, I would have been fine. You know, I would have been absolutely fine with that. But the fact that you had to have season 3, 4, and most of 5, all the way up to this last episode, waste my time, I can't recommend this show. As much as I like season 1, I can't do it. I don't like this show. I stopped liking this show a while ago. And so I lost motivation to keep feeding into the normie bait that is The Boys. Is it better than the comics? No. No, it's not. The comics have their charms. The show has its charms. There's things that are better in the show than the comics. There's things that are better in the comics than the show. It's a nuanced discussion, but to say that one is better than the other definitively would just be an outright lie. Because they both fucking suck. They both really suck. But in my opinion, I think the comic books have a more clear narrative and more concise narrative that is consistent. The show does not. The show fumbles its way through each season, trying to hammer you over the head with identity politics and just spiteful, angry normie bait. All the way until the end where it crawls to the fucking finish line. Rushing through all these different arcs. But yeah, The Boys is over. If they have any more spinoffs, I don't think I'll be watching them. I really don't. The Boys Mexico, not interested. Vought Rising, not interested. If Gen V gets renewed, I'm not interested. I hate this show. I hate the fans that it garners. I hate the world, that, like, what it does to the world. I mean, I like the world building and I like the interesting creativity around it, but the putting it in the cultural zeitgeist, what it does to the world, like, not a fan. So any spinoffs come out, not interested. No Homelander, no Butcher, not interested. So, but let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in another video very soon.